Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is not only the longest title in this franchise, but also the 7th entry in a series that's been running for nearly 3 decades. After 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout was not only nearly unanimously praised, but also a smash hit at the box office, how does this latest entry compare to the rest? Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today, I am going to be ranking all 7 of the Mission Impossible movies. Of course, as always, this list is completely subjective, and that is why it is oh so important that you leave your own personal ranking down in the comments below. And don't forget that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my ranking videos, and I believe we are closing in on 150 videos currently on that playlist for you to enjoy, so if rankings are your thing, then be sure to check that out, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Number 7, Mission Impossible 2. This was by far the easiest placement of this entire list. It's really the only one in the series that I just don't really like all that much, if I'm being honest. It certainly has its moments, but I feel it just has far too much of director John Woo's style throughout it, which when compared to the rest of the series definitely sticks out like a sore thumb. There is a ton of quick cuts, a ton of slow motion, and the action just feels super stylized and over the top. I've noticed over the last few years that this one is also now definitely getting the revisionism treatment over on social media, because a lot of defenders are coming forward for this movie saying that it's better than most people remember, or it's time we finally admit that this is the best in the franchise, and I just don't buy into it. I mean, that's again my own personal opinion, but this movie I just don't really care for. I feel like if they changed the name and it wasn't a Mission Impossible movie and changed the character's name and stuff like that, this movie would have worked perfectly fine as like a late 90s, early 2000s action flick, but as a part of this franchise in the way that I view it and what I expect to see when I watch one, this one just doesn't fit. Number 6, Mission Impossible. I am totally expecting to get a ton of flack with this one, and I am completely okay with that. This movie has many iconic moments that have been etched into cinema history, and that is honestly the main reason to watch this one, because if you go back and watch it today, especially for the first time, in my own humble opinion, not every aspect, in fact, many aspects haven't really aged all that well. The plot feels part too convoluted for its own good, but then also part just very 90s. And it definitely does not pack a punch like the later entries do. Does it still have its own merits? Yes, absolutely. Like I just said, MI2 is the only one that I don't really care for. I have watched this movie many times, and I do definitely enjoy it, but just compared to the rest, it doesn't really stand the test. Number 5, Mission Impossible 3. There seems to be a lot of debate at which movie was the turning point for this franchise. Was it this one, Mission Impossible 3, or the next one, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol? In my eyes, it's this one, Mission Impossible 3, and most of that, if not all of it, is thanks to director J.J. Abrams. He brought the style, he beautifully meshed the mystery, thriller, espionage elements with the action, gave us big, epic, cinematic Hollywood blockbuster moments, but also very well-written and tightly coordinated character moments, and magnificent twists and turns. And that's just something I feel the previous 2 movies very much so struggled with. So I think that this movie deserves the credit for bringing Mission Impossible back into the mainstream in a big way, because this came out a decade after the original. And after the mixed to poor reception to MI2, if this movie was a flop, then I really don't know if this franchise would have continued on. Let's also not forget the fact that Philip Seymour Hoffman, RIP to that legend, is by far the series' best villain. Number 4, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Yeah, that title is an absolute mouthful, and it's just so much easier to say Mission Impossible 7 or MI7, or even just calling it Dead Reckoning. Honestly, in this day and age, hate the part 1, part 2 thing, because you know you're not getting a complete story. You know to get the ending you have to wait and see the part 2. The part 1 did have me a little weary, and truth be told, the opening of this movie, really the first 45 minutes to an hour, had me scared. Not just a little nervous, but I was very scared for this movie because I find that it opens very weak. I thought that the pacing was off, which also had me concerned considering this is the longest movie in the franchise to date, clocking in at 2 hours and 43 minutes. So that left almost the first half of the movie feeling very bloated, and the story to me seemed needlessly convoluted. Like, convoluted just for the sake of being convoluted and trying to keep you guessing. Now, I don't want to get too negative because I did still really like this movie. Like, I really liked it. I just didn't love it like I was hoping to. Nevertheless, though, thankfully, the story problems, at least for the most part, worked themselves out and delivered a satisfying enough conclusion by the time the credits started to roll. And I will admit, despite me being very worried in the beginning of this movie around that 45-minute to an hour mark, the movie finds its stride and really takes off, delivering exhilarating edge-of-your-seat action, breathtaking visuals, and some truly incredible stunt work. Cruise, as expected, is at the top of his game, still coming off the high of Top Gun Maverick. Seeing the returning characters is always awesome. However, I will say that I wish that these returning supporting characters got more screen time than they did, but at the same time, I must admit that I loved all of the new characters. I mean, Haley Atwell, Pom Klementieff, Shea Wiggum, Esai Morales is Gabriel. I loved all of them, and I thought that they put their screen time to the best possible use and made the most out of every second they had. Also, I am very happy to report that my concerns of this being a part 1 for the most part went away by the time the movie ended, because I do feel that this one did find the legs to stand on its own, but also still do its job in getting me hyped up for part 2. Number 3, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. I rewatched this one for the first time in a long time, and I was so happy that it held up so damn well. Really, it's easiest just to get the negatives out of the way first, because there are so few. Even though they are, you know, depending on who you ask, they might be fairly big negatives, but to me, the positives just immeasurably outweigh the negatives. And those negatives are that the story is admittedly fairly generic. I mean, stop me if you've heard this one before. A terrorist or extremist is trying to steal nuclear launch codes to start World War III and all that jazz. Yeah, it's been in so many action movies and spy movies since the 1980s at the height of the Cold War, so that is nothing new whatsoever, and unfortunately, they massively wasted the great late Michael Nyqvist as this movie's main villain, because you barely get to see any of him at all. He has so little screen time, he has no good or memorable line, and it sucks because Michael Nyqvist is always great in pretty much everything that he's in, and the dude plays a killer villain, but he was just not given enough to work with in this movie. Everything else though, stellar, outstanding. I love the core team that they go with in this movie. I love the Ghost Protocol initiative being activated. They're all disavowed, they're all gone rogue, they're all left to their own devices. They have to improvise, adapt, and overcome. The chemistry of the cast is fantastic, everyone delivers exceptional performances, and this movie just has so many unbelievable moments, and just so many truly captivating sequences. I mean, Tom Cruise actually climbing the Burj Khalifa. I love the chase through the sandstorm, the blowing up of the Kremlin. It is just truly some expertly crafted stuff. Number 2, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Yep, Rogue Nation is just damn near flawless. This movie is so close to being a masterpiece. There's just a few little things here and there, a couple of little like MacGuffins, you know, little conveniences, in a few areas where it seemed like they cut corners and they don't really explain things, and things just seem to work out a little too well. And I also find that the section with the British Prime Minister is far too rushed. Like, it's something that I feel like could have taken up a good portion of the final act, and really it's like a few minutes, so it really lacks that punch and doesn't really have as much weight to the movie as I felt that it should have. But aside from that, this movie is like top tier action, top tier spy thriller, top tier everything. This movie is so damn good. It has one of the best motorcycle chases I have ever seen, arguably the best I have ever seen. Once again, it has these just immaculate standout sequences, like Tom Cruise actually hanging on for dear life to the outside of a plane taking off, like the madman actually did that. That's the best way to remember these movies, is just by quoting all of the crazy ass stunts that Cruise does. He also has the sequence where he's holding his breath underwater that he actually can do. He trained himself to hold his breath for 6 minutes at a time. It was also our introduction to Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa Faust, who is a series favorite character, and the story is just so cool. Having an anti-IMF known as the Syndicate that is making it seem like hundreds of operatives from all around the world are dead or MIA, and using them to enact, terrorist acts and bring about a new world order and all this other stuff. That is some great writing, and they deliver on it 10 times over. Number 1, Mission Impossible Fallout. It's best to start off this one by saying that I have no negatives with this movie, none whatsoever. Whether you're talking about the action, the story, the twists and turns and the mystery, the more nail-biting moments, the more softer personal character moments, the crazy stunts, the writing, the pacing, all of it is just top-notch. In my opinion, this is one of the greatest action movies ever made, and I have rewatched it numerous times to put that to the test. I'm like, alright, it's been a year, maybe I should rewatch it, it's been 6 months, is it really as good as I remember it being? Yeah, every time I watch it, I fall in love with it all over again, and I stand by that statement. This is one of the greatest action movies ever made. It's firing on all cylinders and delivers on all fronts. The stakes feel big, they feel personal, they feel real. It has these unbelievably epic moments like a helicopter chase sequence, Tom Cruise and the cameraman actually doing a halo jump, which is the big skydiving sequence. The bathroom fight is also another fan favorite. It once again has many returning cast members and introduces new fantastic characters as well. And this probably has one of the most well-orchestrated final acts I think I have ever seen. Every character is given something that is of the utmost importance to do. Everything is pushed to the brink, to the absolute limit. And it just ends in such a satisfying manner. From start to finish, everything about this movie is truly glorious. It is an astounding piece of cinema. I love it, and it is without a doubt my favorite of the Mission Impossible franchise. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. And while you're at it, don't forget to leave your own ranking in the comments as well. If you're a movie lover whatsoever, then my channel is the place to be for you. Be it rankings like this one, top 10 videos, tier list videos, versus videos, I have it all and so much more, with plenty of new series and big changes cooking up behind the scenes. Not to mention, we are closing in on 900 videos currently on the channel for you to enjoy. So if you enjoyed this particular video, then be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if any of that sounds like it's right for you and you want to see more from me, then smash that subscribe button right now. And while you're at it, don't forget to ring that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching. And that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.